It's Monday morning, and I have got the Greek god Matt Chan on the podcast this morning. What's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. I'm actually been on my ass for the last 5 days because I had some stem cell injections in my right knee and in my back. So the recovery from that is I'm pretty much laid up for about 5 days, and then I go back in for platelet injections on top of that. And then that's pretty quick, so maybe like 2 or 3 more days, and then try to start walking and moving around a bit more and greasing the groove. So I've been on my ass and doing a bunch of work on the computer, and that's about it.
I've got the same thing. I don't have the same thing. I've got arthritis in my left knee. I've got I think they call it a bucket tear in my right meniscus, and I just tore my gastrocnemius. So I was talking about I should write a book of how to the life of the life after 40, staying fit or something. And you've talked about that quite a bit before. I mean, how old are you now?
46, turning 47 next month.
Yeah, so we're a couple years apart. Like, when did the wheels fall off? And I guess before we get to that, for those who don't know who Matt Chan is, I've had him on podcasts before, but Matt, tell everybody a little bit about yourself so they know kind of what they're dealing with. Matt's an extreme athlete and one of the more fit people on the planet.
I appreciate that. At this point, I feel like what you're saying, not so much. I'm just held together with tape and neoprene, basically. Yeah. So I consider myself now a career firefighter only. But back in the day when CrossFit was first coming around, probably 2007, I was really into fitness, and I was introduced to that as I was entering the fire service, the professional fire service, as a means of kind of like preparing for any and everything. And I started doing it at a 24-hour fitness, and that quickly escalated to go into an affiliate. I started qualifying for the CrossFit Games, and I ended up going for 6 years real early on, from 2008 until 2013. And I did pretty well. I was pretty successful in that career. I stood on the podium one time in second place in 2012. And I learned a lot about fitness during that time. I got to teach with the CrossFit seminar staff, traveling around the world, not only talking to people who were just interested in getting fitter, but also people who were looking to apply the CrossFit methodology in their gyms, CrossFit athletes during the CrossFit competitor program. And since then, I've focused mostly on getting the everyday person fitter, following a program that I think if a CrossFitter would look at it, they'd be like, that's definitely not CrossFit, which is true. I don't consider it a CrossFit program, but it's got the highlights of the CrossFit program in it, with what I've found in my, long in the tooth years, to be a little bit more effective at training for everyday life and for longevity. So opened up a company called TrainForTheWin back in 2017. And we've been doing that now. My wife and I have been doing that since then. And the program has changed quite a bit over the years, and it's pretty awesome now. We also program for fire departments, specifically fire academies. And we've had the luck to program for like 17 different fire academies, and got to test these things out to see if we could reduce injury in the fire academy and prepare people, prepare these newbies for, line work, as well as getting through the academy injury free and capable of performing the job. So that's a quick 1-2 on the transition I've made over the last bunch of years. But I'm with you, man. Like right now, it's not, am I hurt? It's really what hurts. And from time to time, it takes, getting knocked down off your feet for a period of a couple weeks to really allow things to kind of heal. And that's where I'm sitting today, is in order to heal this meniscus. And like you said, I've got osteoarthritis in my tibia, patella, and femur, as well as, discs that have some impingement and cause some nerve issues. It's like I said, it's not, is something hurting? It's what's hurting today. And right now I'm about 5 days in, and I feel like I'm ready to jump out the window. to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up, one, obviously just your history, but two, the training programs and how they've changed. And, yeah, I was never, at the level where you're at, fitness wise, as far as like the CrossFitters are insane athletes, but being what I would kind of consider somewhat of an athlete through the years, looking back, right now that I'm all fucked up, what I would have done differently. And I don't know, again, like my workouts now are much different than they used to be. I don't lift heavy. I lift a lot of muscle groups at one time because I'm trying to maintain, not tear the muscle, really, just keep maintain it. And, so I get a lot of questions on this stuff. And I'm definitely, and I mention you constantly, I am not the guy, right? Like I kind of wing it and it's working for me. When I say that, meaning I stay at a relatively high level of fitness. But I'm the injuries, right? Like the wheels started falling off the wagon for me at about 45, 44, where I really, 46 was a rough year for me. Now I'm 48 and it's not getting any better. Stretching was one thing I've never done. And when I say that, like being a total athlete, and I don't mean bench, deadlift, squat, meaning being extremely like, I'm about as flexible as a piece of rebar. I feel that if I would have been much more well-rounded or started working that when I was younger, that probably would have helped some of the issues I'm having now. But you want to dive into that? You're much more in depth on this stuff than I am.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I'm in the same boat. It's like when you're in your mid-20s, you can crack your knuckles and snap your neck and, do a hard, heavy workout without any warm-up at all. And now it's like 35, 40 minutes of, slowly ramping everything up and seeing what hurts before you do anything. So I think the big thing to take away from what you said is that, you're trying to maintain what you have. And that assumes that you have a foundation that you've built upon for a lot of years. And I know you and, kind of the guys you hang out with, that all of those guys, all those individuals they've built an incredible foundation of fitness, both aerobically and anaerobically, for a number of years. So basically, just touching those weights from time to time, you can maintain both muscle mass and your fitness level, pretty easily. The hard part for like your listeners that are like, where do I start? Is if you're starting at the age of 40 something, it's an uphill battle for sure. You're not going to see those gains as quickly, as well as you're probably going to see injury because of your body's just not prepared to handle that loading, and it's just not going to be as resilient. So, every session I do now, I finish with 7 minutes of stretching, and like you said, it's like, it's almost more important than the lifting part of things. Is like, while you're warming up, if you're getting ready to train and something's just like, for me, it's my knee. It's like, is this a good day? And if I ask myself that question, it's like, no, it's not a good day to do this. Like, my squat program can wait a couple days until this knee feels a little bit better, or my back feels a little bit looser. And I'm going to probably reduce the chance that I'm going to injure it worse. So, I think the age thing is something that you and I are both learning at the same time. And it's tough because exercise has changed quite a bit from like the people that the generations before us, where people our age now, that we're just doing machines. So isolation exercises where the risk is very low and injuries are probably far less common. The problem with that is it's far less functional in the real world than what we are doing. But there's a trade-off. What we are doing, where you talked about, maybe compound functional movements like the squat or the bench, or if you want to talk power cleans or whatever, those things, there's more risk involved, but there's more functionality involved as well, as you were calling it, athleticism. So if I'm going to sit there and use isolation exercises to basically mimic a squat, I'm going to have to do a leg press. I'm going to have to do, quadricep extensions. I'm going to have to do hamstring curls. I'm going to have to do the old glute bridge machine. Whereas if I just throw a moderate to moderate heavy weight on a squat, I can train those all at once and use my body as a system. Again, the risk is injury. So you got to kind of weigh that stuff. And I'll admit it, I've definitely reduced volume. So in other words, reps and sets at high loads for those heavier lifts now, and added more accessory work in hypertrophy rep ranges, which would be kind of like that 8 to 12 or 8 to 15 reps per set. And I now do more sets of those accessory exercises. So I try to maintain the functionality with the big compound movements, and that doesn't necessarily just mean the powerlifting movements, but I add in more volume with the accessory work. And that's how I program for the people that I work with as well.
And that's kind of what I've done. Not kind of, like, I don't squat at all anymore, an actual squat. I do air squats, and I'll do, and again, like, we probably should rewind this, but like right now, you know, when people say I don't have time to work out, and you've made a couple comments to me where I talked about like my heart rate, had trouble getting it up, and you're like, well, I got some ideas. And I'm like, all right, I need to rework my workout. You know what I mean? Like, I need to rebuild myself, the functional movements. And this was a few years ago, but you know, if you say you don't have time to work out, and I'm like, hey, why don't you guys, you know, somebody, if you don't have time to work out, like, quick, like, do 50 air squats for me. And at 22, you hit muscle failure. It's like, well,
right.
Air squats don't, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of room for people to work on things with very little. You don't need a gym membership or whatever. But rewinding, when you're talking about like functional movements, for me and what I do, as I've, you know, on the backpack hunting side, just doing, like, basically just with a box and some dumbbells and just step ups, right? If I grab 35 dumbbells to 55-pound dumbbells, and I just do a 24-inch box step up for 5 minutes, I will be dead. Like, that will smoke me. In comparison, you know, or if I do like just wall sits, if I just do air squats, do some lunges, that is what I've really started to cater to now for the last few years to help myself backpack hunting in less injury. Now, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but, you know, meaning that's just what I've come up with. It seems to be lower impact on my body, lower impact on my knees. But like rewinding, like starting from the beginning, you're not going to be a CrossFit athlete. You just want to be a functional athlete that's good in the mountains. What would you suggest for someone to do? What would that workout look like?
So I would actually, so you have to look at a program as a whole, and that gets very complex. But I really think that for anybody right now, if I'm going to recommend any sort of program, the basis of that program is going to be aerobic fitness. And that can be, you know, running. And the term that's thrown around quite a bit right now is zone 2. And that's tough to really quantify without some specific equipment. But a really easy way to do it is with heart rate. And it's fairly accurate. A zone 2 heart rate is 180 minus your age. Okay, so for me, I think that's like 134 is my zone 2 limit. And that's not super accurate for me because I've done the actual blood lactate test and my heart rate's a little higher, but it doesn't really matter. It's, you know, that zone 2 heart rate of 180 minus your age is what I'm talking about when I say aerobic fitness. And for a lot of people, if they're just getting started, or if they've been, you know, CrossFit athletes for a long time, where they do these really short, hard workouts that are focused on anaerobic fitness or high heart rate, fast twitch muscle fibers, they're going to find that if they're on a treadmill, they're going to have to walk or have a fast walk or a slow jog in order to remain in that zone 2 heart rate. So I would say that if somebody is looking to start a fitness program and they have unlimited time, so I'm saying 5 days a week might be optimal for most people to allow for some recovery in there. 80% of their total time exercising should be in that low heart rate, zone 1, zone 2 heart rate range in order to establish a really big aerobic base, which will benefit them in the mountains, which will benefit them, if they're into endurance sports such as cycling or running. But I know that the primary listener to this podcast is going to be, backpack hunters. And frankly, if you can't go the distance without remaining aerobic, there's a big problem there. So having that aerobic base will benefit you. And then in addition to that, I would recommend, I said like an 80-20 split. So the other 20% might be like zone 4, or what you would consider like high intensity interval training stuff, where it's like very high heart rate for moderate periods of time. So 4 rounds of 4 minutes of work at a very high heart rate, and then 4 minutes of rest. And that could be anything like, let's just make it easy and just say 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, followed by the remainder of the time in a max calorie row. So you're really like going for it on the rower. That could be like an interval that you could use to achieve that goal. But then
I want to make sure you get your info out, because when I say that, meaning if anybody's lost in the sauce as Matt and I are talking, I should have mentioned this. Where can they get a hold of you so you can write them up a program and work with them? I should have done that earlier.
No, it's okay. Just reach out to us at TrainForTheWin.com. Info@TrainFTW.com is a great place to hit us up. We have obviously Instagram and website and all that stuff. So TrainFTW is kind of how you get a hold of us. But going back to that, so like in addition to that kind of HIIT style training where I would do that 1 to 2 days per week, the other 2 days I would do strength training, and strength training specifically, where, right now my focus is the back squat and the bench press, but of course that changes throughout the year. I like to try things like a push press and a front squat, stuff like that. But, if people are looking to jump on a program that's a strength training program and never done one before, my favorite low volume, high intensity training program for strength is the Jim Wendler 5-3-1 method. Just find that the total volume of lifting keeps the body healthy, and the percentages are fairly heavy, but because you're only doing 3 sets each day that you perform the cycle, it doesn't beat up the body so badly that you feel it the next day you train strength.
Gotcha. So like I said, we're rewinding here because I want to make sure like people, understand that you initially, if you're just, fat and out of shape and trying to get back in shape,
yep.
There's different, your programs are going to change to a certain degree, or mine have, to change things up. But I mean, the reality first is diet. You can't work out. You're not going to work out a bad diet. And so
no.
Before we move on to the fitness side anymore, I want to make sure people realize to, and again, I'm not a dietitian, but like, if you want to lose weight, you can't, you got to eat less calories than you're burning in a day, or burning in a day, right? So if you're burning 2,500 calories a day and you ate 2,500 calories in donuts, you would be unhealthy, but you wouldn't lose or gain any weight technically. But if you ate 3,000 calories of chicken breasts, you would technically gain weight because you're eating more calories than you're burning. And so
yep.
You got to make sure that you're kind of on top of your diet. And the one thing that it took me forever to just wrap my head around a diet, because I was just stupid. I mean, dieting really isn't that hard. It's more of a lack of discipline. So I don't want to jump around too much, but before we go into the workout side of things anymore, because I want to dive into that a lot deeper. For the most part, like, people get really wrapped up in from carnivore to paleo to, I mean, there's so many different diets out there. Talk about your thoughts on diet, whether you're like naturally somebody skinny that can't gain weight, or naturally, kind of a fat bucker. Like, talk about those different things and how your diet may change and what you should really focus on.
Okay. So the one thing that does not change for each of the individuals you just mentioned is when meal planning, everything starts with protein. And the goal should be zero point 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So for me, that ends up being around 180 to 210 grams of protein per day. And I will say that most individuals significantly are deficient in their protein intake. And the problem with that is it's one of the things that makes you feel full. And when you're not feeling full, you satiate yourself with the food that tastes better. And those are unfortunately the foods that don't allow you to feel full. So protein is kind of the first thing you fill your plate with. And I will say, whether you're, as you stated, a fat fucker or whether you're the hard gainer, generally an easy way to kind of, without weighing anything, to guide yourself on how much protein to eat is if you look at the size and shape of your palm. Basically, men should eat 2 pieces of meat the size and shape of their palm. Okay, so just 2 palm-sized pieces of meat. And right away, I think when people consider that, they're like, "Oh my God, that's a pretty big steak," or that's, maybe even 2 chicken breasts of protein. That I definitely don't even come close to that. And if they change that alone, you're going to find that people are going to put on more muscle mass and they'll eat less shit in addition to that protein. So that's where you start. And as far as number of meals, honestly, 3 to 4 meals per day is plenty for most people. The thing that should be eliminated is snacking. So, when people don't put a limit on the food between meals, that's again where the unwanted calories come from. Or, they go to the grocery store and as on their way home from the grocery store, they decide to eat some of the food that they picked up. That is snacking, and that's something that really causes problems in the diet. The second thing would be to choose wholesome carbohydrates first. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have foods that, they desire, because like you said, you could fulfill your calorie requirements with donuts and Frito-Lay products. It doesn't fucking matter. But if you eat more micronutrient dense foods, so vitamins and minerals and fibers, you're going to feel better. You're going to perform better. You're going to feel fuller. You're going to look younger. You're going to perform better. So that could be a little bit of vegetables and a little bit of fruit. Put those on your plate. And then finally, it was like your fats. Generally, if a food doesn't taste good, it's either lacking fats or it's lacking, sweet carbs. So always have fats in a meal. Generally, the way that most people get their fats is through their protein source, and that's fine. So a fatty piece of meat, or cooking your meat in butter or oil of some sort. And that's usually plenty. But if you're going to add, dressing to a salad, that could be a fat source. If you're going to add avocado to a burger, that's going to be your fat source. So most people don't need to worry about adding fat to their plates. There's plenty of it already on there with your protein source and your condiments that you're adding to your meal. And then kind of like the last piece is like, what is an appropriate amount of like sweets or dessert items, or whatever that thing is that is your kind of hitch in your diet. What's an appropriate amount of that? And what I would say for most people is don't go all or nothing. Let yourself have the things that you desire. And specifically, if you've earned them. And I think that is really difficult because, our scale and scope of the amount of that stuff is so skewed by commercials and by, going out to dinner with friends and seeing these large desserts that are being delivered and all that stuff. Like, here's my thing right now. I love to have 3 meals a day that are, really nutritious. And then at the end of the day, after my last meal, I finish it off with sugar-free Jell-O pudding. It's fucking dumb, but it satisfies my sweet tooth. And I put a little bit of keto whipping cream on it, and it's It just kind of satisfies me. And I do that probably 3 to 5 days per week, and I don't gain weight, and I feel like I'm satisfied on a daily basis. So I think the big walking away points is, for whether you're somebody that is fat and out of shape, or whether you're the skinny guy that can't put on weight, 3 to 4 meals per day. Start with your protein. Put the nutritious food in the form of carbs on second after the protein, which is usually fruits and vegetables. Your fat's already in your meal. And then at the end of the day, have that thing that contributes to your satisfaction that may be considered like a cheat. Kind of the last thing that I would mention is most people that like I work with, or that, I talk to and have worked on with nutrition programs in the past, the biggest hitch for almost everybody is alcohol consumption. And, most people that I have worked with, or the guys that I work with at the fire station, you ask them how much they drink, and they're like, I have a beer every night. It's like, is it 1 beer? 3 beers. Okay. Is it light beer? No, it's usually an IPA. And when you start to like add those calories up, and those carbohydrates and all the alcohol sugars, like, man, alcohol is so bad for you. I'd rather you tell me you do ketamine every night than you drink alcohol every night. It's like, it's so bad for you. And it's destructive to the goals, because you get poor sleep. The next day, your performance is going to go down, and it's a compounding problem. It's just like, if you get bad sleep one night, but you drink the next night again, it gets worse and worse and worse. So,
I can attest
alcohol
to that.
consumption.
I quit.
Alcohol consumption to me is a zero sum game for me. Is if you can get rid of it, if you can substitute it with something else that you enjoy, that's a much better option.
Yeah, and I mean, I can attest to that, because I didn't drink for 20 years, and then for 3 years went on like a major, and it was peanut butter whiskey, which is full of sugar, and horrible, like not good. And then I don't know, 4 months now I haven't drank, maybe give or take. Well, I've drank a couple times, but not much. But the sleep is the big one for me. You really notice the sleep, and honestly, with what I was drinking, the inflammation seemed to be much, much worse. In the joints, which, whether that was made up in my mind or not, I don't know, but it certainly seemed to help not doing that. Do you recommend, so being a recovering fat fucker when I was younger, which is why I don't mind saying that, I'm natural fat kid, like the fat kid is strong in me. And so I can't put unhealthy shit in the house, because I'll eat it. And so
Yeah.
I don't do it now, but when I was really kind of getting a handle on all this, somebody like yourself was like, hey, when you're poor and you're pissing away money and you don't know why or whatever, somebody sits you down, and then you write down every dollar you spent for a week. And then you realize you're spending $9 every day at the gas station buying shit you shouldn't buy, whatever. So like, I think it was called MyFitnessPal. It does basically your total calories, your macros, whatever, throughout the day. When you tell people like, Matt, I don't know why I'm not losing weight, I'm eating really healthy, whatever, the reality is you're probably not eating healthy, for one, and two, you're not really, again, taking into account everything that you're eating. So you brought up like dressing. So if you get some kind of a ranch dressing, which I love, but I can't have it in the house, right? And it's an unhealthy ranch dressing. If you put that on a salad, right? And you actually, figure out the portion amount that you put on the salad. And then, throughout the course of the day, you snack a little here, you do this there. If you're it does not take shit to get to 2,400, 2,500 calories a day. Like a donut, probably 300 calories in a donut. And so,
yeah, that's such a good exercise though, is to just recalibrate your eye with what you're eating on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you look throughout the course of the day and you really, like you said, recalibrate, you will certainly find that you are definitely taking in more calories generally than you think you are, and more than you're burning. And one of the things that you talked about, because guys will ask, I eat horribly when I'm at a hunting camp. And Like, how do you not weigh 400 pounds? I'm like, well, I don't do this shit all the time. It doesn't matter if for 3 days I eat kind of crappy, right? It's not that big of a deal because the rest of the time I eat very, very healthy. But what I've learned how I eat in a hunting camp is how most of the planet eats normally. And if you eat a bowl of cereal in the morning and you throw normal 2% milk in there, and that bowl of cereal is fairly significantly sized, that is probably 1,200 calories alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the calibration of your eye with what you're actually eating on a daily basis is an absolutely essential. If you're going to jump into diet, that's an absolutely essential starting place, because, whether you're working with a, registered dietitian, or whether you're working on your own, trying to figure this out just by using ChatGPT and like you said, MyFitnessPal, a great place to start is literally just track what you eat on a daily basis for 2, maybe 3 days. Enter every single element of what you eat. Just toss it on a scale before you toss it in your mouth, and enter it into MyFitnessPal. Another one I really like is, I've been using MacroStacks. That one's pretty good too, and it's cheaper. But what you'll find out is that, like I said, most people severely. Well, here's an interesting point. Like, I'm making generalizations that, most people overeat, but that's not always the case. Like, we talked about the hard gainer. The hard gainer is severely undereats. I don't care. 9 times out of 10, a person that I worked with that just says, I just can't gain weight, I can't put on muscle. And I ask them about their diet, and like, no, I eat plenty. I definitely hit my protein goals. Okay, cool. Track your intake for 3 days for me, and just share it with me on your MyFitnessPal. And I'll go in and look, and there's 1 meal per day, and it's got like 45 grams of protein. It's like, what in the fuck? Did you just not enter it? It's like, no, that's all I ate. But that was a weird day for me. Then you look at the next day, it's the same thing. But generally, like, people who overeat, what you're going to find is that when you start tracking your macronutrients, which I don't recommend for a beginner, don't do this. Just do it for your calibration. What you're going to find is that most people hit their caloric intake by lunch, and their caloric intake goals by lunch. And most of that will be in fat. And the reason is because, like, again, going back just because of what I observe at work, most of the guys that I work with, I have breakfast with them every day, or at least observe what they're eating for breakfast. And they have scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, and usually some sort of condiments that go on there along with it. And then, of course, coffee with some half and half or some sort of foo-foo creamer. And if you were to add together the basic, American breakfast of scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, coffee, and creamer, you're going to see that there's probably 50 grams of fat in that meal. Most people should only be eating about, I'm going to be generous here and say 100 grams of fat per day. So that takes care of half of their fat right in the first meal of the day. When it comes down to the carbohydrates, you're going to find that most people overeat carbohydrates, especially at the end of the day. So yeah, their dinner might have been a very nutritious steak, veggie and potatoes sort of meal. But what they finish it off with is usually, the rest of the pint of ice cream, or a whole pint of ice cream that's in the fridge, or, whatever else kind of, beckons their attention at the end of the day. And generally it's going to be high in carbs and high in fat, as all ice creams and stuff like that are. And we just sabotage ourselves. So doing that exercise of tracking your macronutrients, all of a sudden you start to realize, oh shit, I definitely don't eat enough protein, and I eat way too much fat early in the day. So you can start to make modifications on that stuff. Like, what's a better choice than maybe bacon? Well, I could try turkey bacon. Great. How do I reduce the fat in my eggs? Well, instead of having, 4 eggs over medium for breakfast, maybe I'll do 2 eggs and have it scrambled with egg whites just to get that protein intake. Cool. What about the carbs? Well, instead of having, hash browns that are cooked in oil, and maybe I'll switch it with a couple pieces of toast and some jam. There's really small things that add up throughout the day that can make your diet significantly better, and it won't be that intrusive on your diet. So that's kind of a good exercise. For the person that's a hard gainer, generally you look at their meals and they just need to eat. So like the person that's tracking that stuff, you're going to find that they're under eating protein by a ton and generally just under eating meals. They skip meals a lot.
So let's, I'm going to rewind just a little bit on what we're talking about and go just a little bit deeper into the food portion of this. So the one thing, like, and dude, there's like way too much crap on Instagram going back. I mean, everybody's different, right? But I don't know. Do you know what the hell's his name? Dr. Mike. Big,
yeah.
kind of a shit ton, funny, right? But generally takes anything anybody says and then says that's wrong. You can do this,
right.
Or whatever. And I mean, the guy's a big roided out dude, and some of the things he says I agree with. But when he says like, actually no, carbohydrates or sugars are not bad. What he's meaning with that is in context is like, okay, if you're working out or you're paying attention to them or whatever, but in general, for a fat fucker like myself, carbs are bad, right? I mean, they're just bad unless you really pay attention to them. And so keeping it in context, like for me, I'm more of a carnivore-ish type diet, not straight carnivore, but I'm consuming 500 plus pounds of wild game a year. Like that's my general diet. And I do eat a lot of fat. I don't eat a lot of processed carbs. My sugar intake is really low. It works for me, right? And so for somebody who's an easy gainer that looks at a donut and gets big, as a general rule of thumb, stop eating fucking carbs, right? They're bad, especially processed carbs. That's my personal opinion of being a fat kid. And guys like, well, go ahead.
That's a great point, but I think what the key takeaway should be in what you said is that that's what works for you. I think that you are lucky in that you, number one, have access to that much quality protein. I think we take that for granted. Like this year, I struck out other than an antelope. I'm still going up to Montana with the hopes of killing a cow, but this winter might be a lot of beef for me. So I think when you have the access to the quality of protein that you have, carnivore might work extremely well for somebody like you. And if you are somebody that is less carb tolerant, in other words, like you put on, belly fat. For women, it'll look more like lower abdominal fat and hip and glute fat. That's a good indication that you are likely less carb tolerant. That could be confirmed with some blood markers that can be done with a doctor by looking at your A1C hemoglobin and see what your insulin secretion is over time, and compare that to how many carbs you actually eat. And for some people, a moderate amount of carbs, maybe 40% of their diet, is the most that they can possibly eat. So their total caloric intake, 40% of that number can be from the calories from carbs. But other people are completely carb tolerant and perform better and don't experience negative side effects. And they can eat up to 80% of their calories in carbs. So saying, and this is like you said, Dr. Mike, he's kind of like saying, it depends. I agree with that. It does depend. But if you find that you're somebody that for a long period of time didn't care about diet, didn't look at your consumption, chances are your A1C hemoglobin is in the pre-diabetic range, and lowering your carbohydrate intake under the supervision of a doctor could be very healthy for you and definitely reduce fat mass on your frame, which is going to make you feel better. It's going to make your joints feel better. You're going to perform better. Exercise is going to be easier. So I think all of this stuff, there's no rule. Like you said, it really comes down to calories in versus calorie expenditure. And what we as a Western society have become really good at is being fucking sedentary. And people are crippled by starting. And it's so unfortunate because we are turning into, it's the pussification of America, honestly. And we're just afraid to start because of failure. And that's what our kids are being taught. I think it's changing now. It seems like a little bit, kids are encouraged to get out there and lose games and stuff like that and go into the rec center and play basketball with their friends. But with people my age, your age, dude, if you look at their step count on a regular,
it was different back then.
Win or die, and they're all dying.
Yeah.
But if you look at their step count on a regular basis, most people average 3,000 to 5,000 steps per day. I mean, that is fucking insane how low that is.
So one thing I want to talk about before we start talking about the steps is make sure, and I agree with what Matt's saying, and what I was kind of leading up to with that is get a hold of Matt, because he and his wife can tell you what you should be eating, right? And they can guide you with their program along the way. Meaning, if I, like right now, I'm about 218 and 12 something percent body fat, right? Like give or take. And with what I'm doing, but I'm plateaued. That's kind of where I'm at. Matt would be able to take me and say, dude, you actually need to eat more carbs or less or whatever. You can't guess that. And it takes a lot of time to figure out your own body. And if you're already just kind of sitting around eating donuts, you're not going to figure it out. So you can do that. You and your wife with your program can get them on the right path of what they should be taking in, whether that be a high amount of protein or fat or whatever. The one thing I would argue with anybody is the carbs that you take in. When Matt says carbs, not all carbs are the same. And so I want you to touch on that, because like processed carbs, which I eat some processed carbs, but a sweet potato compared to a white potato compared to whatever, right? I mean, they're different. And so calories in, calories out 100%. But if you're going to become a high fitness athlete or working out, your peak level is going to heavily depend on what you're putting in your body. And so dive into that just a little bit more on like what you talked about. There's different type of fats, different types of carbs. Most people could just throw everything out of their cupboards today and be in probably a lot better shape because understanding these things is it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, I disagree with you. So I'm gonna play the Dr. Mike thing again, and I say it depends. So if you could take somebody who hasn't eaten a vegetable in the last 20 years, and I could convince them to eat something like, a sweet potato or a white potato or a fucking green bean, whatever. Let's celebrate that as a success for one meal, and the rest of them, they can go about their business and eat whatever kind of garbage they want to eat. But, for most people, a real good rule of thumb, like I use that hand-eye measurement, and I think it's something that, we all have hands, we all have eyes, that we can really kind of visualize what that looks like on a plate. So if we talked about 2 palm shape and size pieces of meat, well, for your carbs, what you're generally looking for is 2 fist size, servings of vegetables. So whether that's potatoes, whether that's broccoli, whether that's, whatever, good to go. Put that stuff on there, have that. And then your dense carbs, which would be things like rice or pasta, think of that as like 2 cupped hands. Anything you can fit in 2 cupped hands, put that on your plate, and that's going to finish off that meal. So, again, we're talking idealistic stuff, but in reality, like, is it the end of the world to have pasta? No, it totally isn't. But if we're talking about having a bowl of pasta with 2 ounces of chicken mixed into Alfredo sauce, is that going to be a problem? Maybe not today, but if you do that, every night of the week, yeah, you're going to run into excess carbohydrate consumption and quality problems.
And that's what I'm talking about. And I should have put, because I think we're actually probably agreeing more, is you can't say that your daily, like you can't go eat a bag of chips, right? Like you can't,
right.
Like there's a lot of things you have to, like I'm all for, especially people starting to train high intensity. Carbs are good, right? And it's just if
Yes.
you're trying to lose weight, carbs
Yeah.
are bad. And that's for me, my body type. When I say carbs are bad, most Americans are taking in far too much sugar and carbs and sodium than they probably should be. And I'm probably
Right.
basing this off of a lot of my girthier friends. When I say things like this, it's like if you're going to like let's say Matt's like, hey dude, I'm gonna come up tomorrow or next week and we're gonna do a workout. The
Yeah.
night before, I'm not going to eat pasta and Alfredo sauce and whatever else. I'm honestly probably going to have about 2 pounds of steak throughout the course of the day, 2.5. I'm going to have some sweet potatoes or yams or something like that. I'm going to take in a lot of fucking water, right? And I'm going to be ready for Matt to fuck me up. I'm not going to wake up and eat a donut and what, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to prep my body. And so some of the generalities I'm making here are just off of what I see people eating every day, meaning like chips, cheeseburgers from McDonald's, shit like that. Like, I mean, and again, I think it's probably from some of my buddies' diets that I'm like, dude, come on. Like I just saw what you ate all day. Like, fuck, no wonder. Yeah. You're fat and your knees hurt. Inflammation, right? You probably your shit, your stomach is not like when I say that you're, leaky gut syndrome, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things going on the normal diet, but if you get to where, I mean, what would you say it would take? You're gonna get a guy that calls you tomorrow that's 6'1" and 260. What are the first things you're gonna do with that guy?
Well, like you said, I would first have them establish a baseline of what they're currently doing, and whether that's take a photo of every meal and snack that they have and send it to me as they have it.
And don't fucking lie. No lying. You gotta tell Matt the truth.
Yeah, no, what? Yeah, don't pay me $200 a month, to lie to me, because trust me, dude, I've had people do that, and it's just like the reason you're not getting anywhere is because you're not telling me the truth. And I'm sorry to call you out on it, but everything that you're doing or that you're saying you're doing should be happening. And that's after, checking people's hormone levels and all of that. And if something doesn't add up, the chances are that they're lying to you, it's pretty fucking high. And I think if people are trying to address quality in their meals, as long as they are making their meals with the best intentions and they're using frozen vegetables and whatever, I think that you're going to see so much improvement on how you look and feel that it's going to continue to go down that road. The problem is that when the obstacles of life get in the way, so work, kids, meetings, all of that stuff kind of gets in the way, you start to rely on convenience, and convenience either means not eating a meal at all, and then when dinner time comes, you're snacking before dinner, you're snacking after dinner because you just you went a long period of time without food, or that means going and eating some bullshit at the convenience place around the corner, whether that's a 7-Eleven or whether that's McDonald's or Subway or whatever. That's how people live their lives. And I understand that, just to be completely honest, like there is room for convenience in your diet for sure. It's just those decisions need to be made a little bit smarter. So instead of maybe going to, your local burger place for lunch and having fries, a burger, fries, and a Coke, maybe go over to Chipotle and have the salad bowl and double up the meat. Like there's definitely options that people have, especially with DoorDash and Uber Eats and all that stuff. You can make the smarter decision, and you better fucking own up to that rather than tell me you couldn't. Like that, I'm not willing to work with people who make excuses, especially in this day and age. It's just fucking outrageous how easy eating well can be. You can have fucking meals delivered to your front door that all you got to do is pop them in the fucking microwave. So it's just outrageous to me to say I can't because that's not acceptable now.
Now, and I mean, that's the same thing on the workout type of stuff because, again, I mean, I try to not get stuck in a bubble, which is why I get guys like you on the podcast is, my bubble is I've got a gym at my house and I've worked out enough to where I have a decent idea, know what I'm going, what I mean, what works for me. But I've also learned that, a 15, a 30, a 45 and whatever kettlebell, and some good discipline will kick your ass. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a whole lot. And so, for in the beginning, right? I mean, just do something. And when I say do something, like when you're talking about working out, a lot of people are very intimidated to go to the gym, which I get, right? You don't know how to use the machines. Are you doing anything stupid? You can't afford a trainer. But like you said, you can order food and have it delivered to your house. There is a billion workout programs online. Some of them you probably don't listen to, but you can get some free knowledge. And it's just like you said, people are afraid of failure. Man, you can do a lot in your living room. And then when I say that, what would your workout routine be for somebody that says, I only have a half hour in the morning, and I can't afford a gym membership? What would you say?
You know what? Honestly, this is my advice to somebody that has a limited amount of equipment or access to a gym, but they don't know what to do. And let's say you don't want to spend a lot of money on a program right now because you're just not even sure what you want to do. One of the things that I would do is I would jump on ChatGPT or one of the AI platforms and give it the requirements of what you want to do, what the equipment you have access to, and how much time you have. And dude, this AI stuff is next level right now. They will spit out programs that are science-based that fit your requirements in 5 seconds that you can follow for 4 weeks. And if you don't like it after the first couple of days, you can open that thread of questioning and answering back up and say, I've been doing this exercise. Can you please replace it with something else that I might find more comfortable? And it will help modify your program. So honestly, one of the first places I would start is an AI platform, and say, I have an adjustable pair of dumbbells in my basement. I have 30 minutes a day where I can exercise. I don't want to do high intensity. I only want to do medium and low intensity. And I'm just getting back into this. Can you recommend a program that I can perform 3 days per week in my basement? And dude, you'd be fucking shocked how good of a program it will create for you. And then you can provide it feedback based on your results from those days. But like you said, man, like there's so many great programs out there just to follow. The one thing I would say is just coming from a CrossFit background, if you only have 2 or 3 days to exercise per week and you're not motivated, going into a CrossFit gym is it has such a great return on investment. It doesn't, the whole zone 2 thing that I talked about, if you only have 3 hours per week to exercise, throw that out the window. Do this medium to high intensity program that's all functional movement based, where the coaches are hopefully doing their jobs and assigning you the appropriate weights and the appropriate exercises that you're capable of, and pay the $150 per month for that coaching. Because guess what? That is probably going to be the best program for you. But then, there's other programs out there too, like Jason Khalipa's Train Hard thing that he has going on right now. I'm a big fan of what he's doing, and that's just getting men moving, and they use sandbags a lot, and that's really functional for what we do in the backcountry in the fall, and it could be really beneficial. But there's a million of them out there, and really finding the one that's right for you is it can be tough and intimidating at first, but if you talk to some people and you get some ideas, like, fuck, I love my program. I write it for me and I share it with everybody else. So, yeah.
I mean, what would you say if you showed up and again, considering myself somewhat of an athlete and I can move in the backcountry fine. I would say in 30 minutes, you could have me begging for mercy inside of 30 minutes on a workout. Would you agree with that?
Is that what you? Yeah, absolutely. But is that what you want? And is that going to keep you motivated? Some people, yes, they're going to do a workout where they're laying in a pile of their sweat at the end of the workout, and they think that's like the best experience of their life. other people, you give them one taste of that and they're like, I am never fucking coming back to this place. That was ridiculous.
And I'm glad you brought this up, because I'm kind of leading this into the hunting thing. To get your kid, your wife, your girlfriend into hunting, they have to have fun. They have to be successful. That I found, right? It needs to be an enjoyable experience. Working out is the same thing. So while you could kill me in 30 minutes, I would assume you could. I'm not going to take a first-time hunter on a 12-day backpack hunting trip. The goal is to get somebody on a program, which is what you're talking about, that see some results. And again, where the CrossFit things comes in compared to a normal gym that I've seen is you go to a normal gym, you hire a trainer. There's not a lot of breaking bread. There's no brotherhood. There's no community. From what I've seen, this is generalities, but I would, if you're a musclehead, you'll get along with muscleheads. But if you just go in not knowing anything, where with a CrossFit gym, you get a lot of the motivation. You get a lot of people helping you. You get, you have a family there that will help push you along. I agree or disagree. What do you think of that?
Agreed. And I think that accountability, like especially when you have a friend that's going to the same gym that gives you a ring and say, hey, are we going tomorrow? That's something that can't be underplayed. Like having somebody to be accountable to, and seeing your name on the board 3 times a week is your goal. And if you have somebody there that calls you on your shit when you haven't been in a week and a half, that's a good thing. But I think you could get that at what is it, Force 45 or 45, whatever that's one's called, or Orange Theory. Honestly, if you're a person that is not working out now and has created every obstacle in the world that prevents you from working out, just go pick something that it looks like your flavor and go try it, and keep doing that until you find the one that you're like, I like this place. I like these people. And for you and I, shit, dude, that might just be equipping your garage. Like, I kind of don't want to talk to people when I'm working out. I kind of want to put my headphones in, doom scroll through Instagram as I'm doing my squat sets and just be a fucking hermit. But that's me. And that is definitely not everybody. And that's evidenced by the success of these group fitness classes. So go find the one that works for you. And if that's some Twinkle Toes program that is embarrassing for you to be there, don't tell your friends, but keep going if that's what you love to do. And I'm fucking perfectly fine with that.
Well, as long as you're doing something, and I'm kind of like you, like a lot of the different Western Hunt Expo, different outdoor shows, there's always these big workouts together, which I don't ever go to. It's not because I'm like a total introvert, but I am. It's just really more, I like working out on my own. And that's not to say I shouldn't go or whatever, but I mean, the thing is like, I have a big tractor tire in my front yard. I beat the shit out of it with a giant sledgehammer. Basically, I've got kettlebells. I do kettlebell swings, air squat. I do a lot of different stuff, a lot of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I kind of have my routine. You will write your own book as you're learning this, I guess, is the easiest. Like, as you start to write it, you will find what works best for you. And I just think that doing something from diet to working out, whether that means the first day you walk a mile and you do, I'd say girl push-ups, but you do whatever you want to call it, push-ups on your knees, right? You just keep going. You will end up figuring out what works best, for you. And obviously with what you do was on the highest level. Really, I would say CrossFit, as far as athleticism, is the highest level of fitness you can find from every CrossFitter I've met is at a freakish level. I did a podcast with Rich Froning, and I'm sure Rich. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I guess, like, when I look at CrossFit athletes, they are to me at the highest level.
I'll say this. Like you said, I am good friends with Rich, and I see him, at least once a year still. And this year we did the Leadville 100 together, and it's something that we try to get together and do fitness related things that now look a lot different than CrossFit. And that could be hunting, that could be riding bikes. But I think he and I both learned something about CrossFit. I don't want to speak for him, but I'll say for myself that one of the things that I learned about CrossFit is that as I started to do longer events, and that includes, long days in the backcountry chasing elk is that I didn't have the stamina or the endurance that I thought I did. So, there's a lot of hunting programs out there that are CrossFit style programs that are all high intensity and no low and long intensity. And although it gets people moving, it could be a surprise when you finally are 3 days or 4 days into a rifle hunt. You kill an elk 3 miles back, and you have to make 3 trips, and you are getting your ass handed to you, that you're not as fit as you thought you are. And what that comes down to is aerobic fitness. That's not anaerobic fitness. It's the low and slow grind. And that's why I go back to mentioning, that's why I would train 80% aerobically, where you have a low heart rate. And that's not what you see in a lot of programs. And the reason I think it is because it doesn't look hard. It doesn't look appealing because it's so boring. Like, for some people, that might be sitting on an air bicycle for 90 minutes at a low heart rate. And believe it or not, that's going to prepare you for a backcountry hunt better than, doing 21-15-9 of thrusters and pull-ups. So,
yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's been brought up before, not to make myself sound better than I am, but this is all I've ever done, right? So I'm going to be good at packing an animal.
Well, and dude, that's such an important point, is like, you do that, and you are one of the most successful hunters out there. And that can't be understated. As much as you think the fitness of CrossFitters is so impressive, and I don't disagree with you, I think elements of it is, what you do is equally impressive. And you have to look at what Aron Snyder does to make him as good as he is. And that's the thing, is that most of those people that are at the level that you are, one of the huge elements of their fitness level is the long, slow grind that they put in year after year of aerobic base. And CrossFitters, the problem is there is very little time committed to aerobic efficiency.
Well, and this has just been something that's brought up in hunting camps and everything else. And when when I say that, I have certainly walked very fit athletes, CrossFit athletes, into the ground, especially once there's heavy weight, involved in a longer grind. But it's not like what I've tried to explain. The only I have trained knowing exactly what I needed to do that, and I've done it year after year. But if you ask me to go do a one-legged pistol squat, I can't even do one. Like, I tried the other day, especially on my left leg because my knee's so fucked up. But, or whatever type of workout that you guys are doing, you're going to just destroy me at a very embarrassing level. And it's not that I have some special sauce or anything else. It's just from doing it so many years over and over and over, and then mentally knowing what I'm getting into. And that's, I say that, but knowing what you're going to be doing and knowing the suck level that you're about to hit, I already know what we're going to do. I already know the feeling of my ass cheeks and what's going to be burning and the shoulders and everything else. And it's like, yeah, here we go again. But if it was in reverse, right? If I had to do some crazy CrossFit competition, I don't know. And there's a lot to that, because I know when I can, like, I know if it's a 3.5 mile pack out, I know the exact amount I can carry in rough terrain without question, without a doubt. I know. And that may be something to where I throw on 120 pounds and you're like, you're out of your mind, dude. I can't do that. Well, you got to make another trip, and I don't. And because I've done it so many times. And again, I'm not trying to make myself sound better than I am, but there is something to, like you said, that long grind in comparison to high interval stuff where you would just kick the holy ever living shit out of me at certain things. The one trick pony thing is I can carry a massive amount of weight for a very long time. Not so much now because I'm getting older, but again, you put me in another spectrum, like another field, I'm going to get destroyed. And we've had that talk at hunting camps a lot. It's just different. So, and I'm talking too much. It's just different.
No. So my question to those people is, what's your goal? What do you need to be prepared for? And if I'm talking to a hunter, they're like, well, I want to be able to chase an elk in archery season. and feel like I can do that. Like, all right, well, if you chase the elk and you fucking kill the elk, you also have to be able to carry that thing out. So let's make sure that we keep that end in mind. And my question to that person is, how much of that is going to be very high intensity, where your heart rate is throttled, where you have acid pumping through your blood, where you're generating lactate at a very high rate, where you're going to have to stop and rest? How much of that experience is going to rely on that energy system? And the answer is maybe 10%, maybe 5% at the very most. So to train like that for hunting, it's just silly. Now, here's the part where it can be implemented effectively is some of the things that you described were like, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that. And I can say the same thing for myself. And there's things that I'm not good at. But when you're doing a program that's varied, and this is one of the elements of CrossFit that I've taken with me, even though my program is not, it doesn't look like a CrossFit program at all anymore. As long as there is a variety of movement selection, repetition, and weight, we can introduce enough stimulus that you're constantly adapting to physical stimulus. And what that means is that you're going to have a more well-rounded athlete or a well-rounded hunter that is prepared for more than somebody who is doing just one set of exercises 3 to 5 days per week. That person is going to be good at those those exercises that they're doing every day. So like you said, kettlebell swings, you hit a hammer on a tire. You know, if you only did those every week, guess what you're going to be really good at? You're going to be good at those things. But if life throws you a curveball in the backcountry and you've got to do, you know, let's say a heavy power clean to get, you know, whatever, something done, and you've never done a power clean before, you're not capable in that moment. So that's where CrossFit as a program, or at least varied functional movements, should be included in an effective program, because those adaptations add up to be a lot. And as long as it's a small component of your program and it's not the basis of your program, I think that it can be very beneficial to tag in movements that you've never done before. Now, going back to the pistol squats, because I don't want people to think that like I'm doing pistol squats anymore. Like that could be to a bench, you know, that could be to a high box, but having stability on one leg while hunting is so goddamn important. So goddamn important, because when you're walking with 120 pounds on your back, all the weight is on your hips and on your shoulders, and every step requires you to stabilize on one leg on uneven ground. Is a pistol squat a good representation of that moment? No, not at all. Does it prepare you in some way for that moment? Yes, it does. Okay. So even though I like I said, I haven't done a pistol in probably 5 years, I do a little variation of a pistol where I'll do, you know, I'll sit back to a box and then stand back up while holding a rubber band that's attached to a pull-up bar. You know, that might be my move. That might be my movement. So that's where a varied program can really benefit hunters. The intensity side of it, I would discourage a program that's all intensity and no low intensity. I would just, if you look at a program and you see shit, everything here is short and intense, to me, it doesn't represent reality. It doesn't represent life as well as it claims that it does. So,
well, and I think the biggest thing, and what I brought up earlier, is being well-rounded, which would have been, you know, the big thing that I would have changed going back in recent years. Like I don't know what you call those, where the rubber band's around my ankle and I'm doing whatever side steps and goofy shit like that. I never did that before. I do it now, right? And the knees over toes guy, started watching some of the stuff he did, and I'm like, dude, I went to the gym when no one was there because I'm like, this is fucking embarrassing. Like, there's like, how can I pack? Like, I literally just came off multiple weeks of packing out animals, crushing the side of the mountain. And then I go back and I'm trying to do, like you said, just throwing a curveball. And I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Is anybody watching? Like and again, I knew that was a weakness, so I started working on it. But there was shit that I was doing recently, trying to work, mostly like knees and again, just more functional fitness that I just had never done. And while I could pack an elk out or a sheep or a goat, there was other things. And I'm like, I have got to get better at these, because no matter what whatever I thought in previous years that I was doing the right thing, these things that I'm working on now are definitely going to, to help long term. Will it help? It won't hurt. I don't know how much it'll help. It's certainly not going to hurt. And again, sidestepping across the gym with a rubber band around my ankle is, gay as that looks, smoked the shit out of me in the beginning. I did like back and forth 3 times, and I was feeling pain and shit that I didn't even know I had. And I mean, that's a rubber band. So again, like the curveball thing is a huge, just train, I guess, is as well-rounded as you can be.
Yeah. And finding those elements of exercises that, that you probably should perform on a more regular basis, that can be really helpful. And you mentioned the knees over toes program. So a lot of those exercises, like the Patrick step and the elephant walk that he has in his basic program, like I still do those on a regular basis, because like you said, if you find that one thing that really lights up a muscle tissue that, you haven't felt in a long time, chances are doing it a little more often can do nothing but good things for you, via adaptation to that muscle tissue. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with being repetitive with certain exercises. It's just maybe they should be the exercises that you probably aren't as good at, right? Or if there's some specificity to the let's just call it the competition that is your goal. And if that competition is, packing out an elk, your hip stability has got to be as tip-top shape as it possibly can. So doing things like the monster walk with the band around your ankles is one of those elements. Monster walks, doing the glute walk where the band is underneath the rack to a belt. All of those things that can challenge your hip stability with load, huge. So I think the specificity of some of the exercises, it should be taken into, why am I, people say this shit all the time, and they're like, yes, do people need to do the Olympic lifts? And they say yes, because it challenges your athleticism, and there's always adaptation. I'll tell you what, I haven't done a snatch, especially a squat snatch, in like 7 years. And my life has not suffered in one iota because of it. And frankly, my shoulders feel better. My lower back feels better. It's too dynamic of a movement for me at my age. So I challenge myself with other exercises at lighter weights now instead of that one.
Yeah. And on the backpack hunting side of things, like you're taught, like one of the things they'll throw a pack on and get on the never ending stairs to get ready for a backpack hunt. And I'm like, man, that's good. But I can tell you now, when you start to side hill, you're going to feel pain in the side of your shins you've never felt before. Your ankles aren't used to that. You're going to get hot spots. Again, I'm not shitting on the never ending stairs because I get it on all the time, but there's different parts of your body, and what that rubber band is just a bitch to me, but I use it all the time now as far as like whatever you called it, the monster walk. But, once somebody, at the end of the day, there's nothing better than training exactly the way you're going to go out to figure out weaknesses. So if you throw 65 pounds on your back and go do a mile side hill, just side hill with one leg down, right or left, you will feel pain. Terrible. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, you'll feel pain that you've never felt before. I promise. It's no different than me throwing the rubber bands around, doing that work. I hadn't done it. And so it's really important, again, to train with, and again, I'm lucky because I'm in the woods all the time, but dude, I got back, like I said, I started doing different workouts that I hadn't done before, and it was embarrassing. Like, it took like a little bit of my man card away, because I'm like, this little 20-pound, whatever it was, rubber band just beat my ass like a rented mule. But I was seeing things and feeling things from that rubber band that I feel on the side of the mountain. And so it correlates, right? You just have to figure out what works best. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that speaks to kind of timing your training as well. So, if you consider again, using the idea of a competition, if you consider your competition season the fall, then starting your training in the summer is not ideal. Like, you should have a base level of fitness already established by the time June rolls around, so that you can then train with more specificity, doing the stuff that you're talking about, where it's like going out rucking with, some side hilling, some steep uphilling, even starting to incorporate elements of like crawling or 3-pointing, starting to really get specific with your training. That should be like the last 8 weeks. Most people are starting to train for their hunts probably, 8 to 12 weeks out. And unfortunately, yes, you can establish a base level of fitness, but you're definitely not going to experience all the benefits of training with sport specific movement if that's all you've done. And, going in with aerobic fitness, like we've talked about, is extremely important. Having a base level of strength is extremely important. And at the very least, let's just say, let's say your hunt is September 1st. It starts, you got August, July, June. That could be kind of like your getting more sport specific towards archery season. But then you look at May, April, March, that should be your base level fitness stuff. So if you draw your tag and you're going to get, and you know what you're doing in September, probably March 1st is the last day that you want to wait to start doing a general physical fitness program that you either, create yourself or that you buy online. And you do that for 12 weeks. And then at the end of that 12-week program, then you can get a little bit more specific with, getting out there on the hill, putting some miles on with weight in your pack, and breaking in your boots and trying your sleeping system, and, all the things that you see on YouTube that people do prior to their hunts.
Yeah, I think, and that's a good idea. And again, with anybody listening to all of this, just, get a hold of Matt if you're looking to do the deep dive into this, which I highly suggest, because you never hear anyone say, man, I just wish I was fatter, or fuck, I'm too fit. Like, that comes out of no one's mouth, right? I wish my arms were smaller, right? I mean, fitness is a good thing. It just takes a while to get in the swing of it. But with all of this big bag of snakes, I mean, get a hold of a professional like Matt, and they can get you on the road to recovery and fitness, because it does make a huge difference. I found fitness is kind of like Jesus, right? When somebody first finds the Lord, they generally won't shut up about it, because like whatever happened during that transformation, fitness is the same thing. You meet somebody that got skinny, you're going to see 7 million photos of how skinny they got on Instagram. I mean, it's crazy, but it is truly does make you a better human, in my opinion, and make you do feel better about it. So you just have to start. And that's the biggest thing for a lot of people, is they're scared to start.
Yeah, agreed. And honestly, that's where these group classes, they're so beneficial, because you just don't have to think about it. You go in there with a pair of tennis shoes and a pair of shorts, and you can get started on day one. And, if you don't like that place, go to your next place on your list and keep it going. But again, like you said, even if you're being consistent with your fitness program and seeing your fitness go up, if you're eating like a fat ass and you're drinking alcohol every night, you are not seeing all of the benefits that you could. So those are important elements to address for sure. And doesn't mean you can't have fun on the weekends. That doesn't mean you can't, have some cheat days in there and all of that stuff. I think that moderation is something that my dad always told me growing up when I started smoking pot and stuff like that. He'd come in and he'd see me super stoned on the couch, and he'd be like, "Hey, what'd I tell you? Moderation." It's like, it's come back to me today, where it's just like, that moderation, both good and bad. So moderate good exercise, moderate your diet a little bit, give yourself some of those opportunities to go out with your friends and not count grams of protein and, with a scale on the table. Get out there, have some fun, but also keep your goals in mind. Like, man, oh man, I just can't believe how quickly people let go of their goals. Like, you've got this big hunt coming up, and you started this training program 3 weeks ago, and one little fucking obstacle gets in the way, and that's the end of it. You're like, I think I'm going to turn that tag back in, or I'm going to hire a guide service so that I don't have to carry anything, or I'm going to get some llamas so that I don't have to carry anything. It's disappointing to talk to people when they give up that quickly, when you see how motivated they are initially.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It happens, and I don't know, not to do the whole motivational. I mean, the whole do hard things. There's a lot to that, whether that be hopping in an ice bath or going to the gym when you don't want to. And it'll make it harder for you to, you'll be able to run over speed bumps rather than have them really slow you down. Because I'm kind of addicted to ice baths now, and I'm not the guy that posts about them. But I tell you what, you definitely learn pain getting in that fucking ice bath first thing in the morning. Like, it's not something you want to do, but it definitely starts your day out right. And like, I do push-ups all day. I tell guys, people that all the time. Do air squats all day. You know what I mean? Just get your blood flowing, do something. And you'd be surprised at the human body is an amazing thing if you put the work in.
Yep. And here's the thing. If you think of all the successful people in the world that you idolize and all that, what do they have in common? They like to work hard, and that includes physical fitness. Very rarely are you idolizing somebody who is, whether it's in the business world or whether it's, a sports figure. Very rarely do people idolize somebody where fitness is not a big part of that person's life, because working hard, they've already shown that it develops parts of your brain. It makes that part of your brain larger. And I think, like you said, just getting in an ice bath, even if it's just for 2 minutes, if you can just control your adrenaline during that first minute through some breathing exercises, you learn that when I get out of this thing, I feel like I've already done something with my day that other people haven't, and it feels fucking good. And despite the discomfort that you have for those 2 minutes, it keeps you coming back every single morning. And, whether that's doing 15 push-ups on the hour, or whether that's going into your, Orange Theory class at 7 p.m. because your day got sidetracked. If you just do something hard every day, you're going to start to want to do more of that stuff, and it's going to make you a better person in the long run.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, Matt, we're almost working on an hour and a half here, so I don't want to take up any more of your time, but can you list off again where people can search you out for help with a program, dieting, things like that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the diet thing, I'm not your best resource, but I will say that there are a lot of good resources out there, and I can certainly point you in the direction. So if you want to reach out to us, I'll happily give you the resources that I have. But you can reach me at Matt1Chan on Instagram, and my training program at _FTW on Instagram as well. We try to put out a little content here and there, but as I've gotten a little bit older, it's definitely less of a priority to me. But also, if you would, just check out TrainFTW.com. We're actually starting a new program with new goals on, I believe it's January 6th. So you can start your year off right with the Train for the Win program. The way that we kind of run our programs is we have about 3 goals that we try to fulfill with a 8 to 10 week cycle. That way, it doesn't get boring, and you can see yourself working towards that goal. Like, for example, right now, we're at the end of a cycle where we're working on the kettlebell snatch test, which is 10 minutes of kettlebell snatches without putting down the kettlebell. And the gold standard is established by the Secret Service, which is 200 reps in that 10 minutes without setting the kettlebell down. So pretty cool. We've been working on it now for about 8 weeks, and the test is next week. So people get to test that out. And then we've been doing a squat and a bench press program in addition to the other stuff we do, where we're going to test out those as well. So that's what the next cycle will look like. It'll be different stuff, but we'll be starting that January 6th. So if you want to jump on, check out TrainFTW.com.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, I've known Matt for a long time, and he's always a great resource. So like, when in doubt, when I'm like blabbering, saying dumb shit I shouldn't, I try to get people like Matt on to keep it between the mayo and the mustard when it comes to general knowledge of fitness and things like that. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you, Aaron. I love seeing everything you're doing, and you're definitely an inspiration to me and to stay fit for those kind of activities. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, my Lance Banning, become friends with pain. You'll never be alone. Just keep that in mind as you're working and getting into fitness, because you probably won't always be happy. But yeah, dude, let's touch base again, get you back on the podcast at some point when we get kind of the feedback from this. And everybody, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Aaron.